the part you ignore. There is a part of your mind that you have been ignoring for most of your life, not because you chose to, but because you were never taught how to see it. It does not announce itself. It does not speak clearly. But it influences you more than you think. You may believe that your thoughts are fully yours, that your reactions make sense, and that your behavior reflects who you are. But if you look closely, there are moments that don't quite align. Moments where your reaction feels stronger than expected, or where you act in ways that don't match the version of yourself you believe in. Those moments are not random. From my perspective, they are signals. They point to something deeper happening in the background of your mind. Something that exists outside your immediate awareness, but still shapes the way you think, feel, and respond to the world around you. This is the part most people ignore, not because it is invisible, but because it is uncomfortable. It contains thoughts you would rather not admit, emotions you struggle to understand, and impulses that do not fit the image you have built of yourself. So instead of exploring it, you push it away. You focus on what feels clear, controlled, and acceptable. Over time, this creates a gap between who you think you are and how you actually behave. And the larger that gap becomes, the more confusing your own mind starts to feel. You begin to question your reactions, your patterns, and even your identity. But instead of looking inward, most people look outward for answers. They blame circumstances. They blame other people. They assume something external is causing the disconnect. But often the answer is internal. There is a part of you that has been shaping your behavior quietly, consistently, and without your full awareness. And the more you ignore it, the more influence it has. Why you can't see it? The question is not whether this hidden part of your mind exists. The real question is why you have such a difficult time seeing it. Why something that influences you so deeply can remain unnoticed for so long. From my perspective, the answer begins early. As you grow, you learn what is acceptable and what is not. You are guided toward certain behaviors and away from others. You are rewarded when you fit expectations and corrected when you don't. Over time, this shapes the way you see yourself. You begin to build an identity, but that identity is selective. It is based on the parts of you that are accepted, encouraged, and reinforced. And while those parts become stronger and more visible, other aspects of your personality begin to fade from awareness. Not because they disappear, but because they are pushed aside. You learn to ignore certain thoughts. You suppress emotions that feel uncomfortable. You avoid impulses that don't align with who you believe you should be. And gradually, those parts of you become less accessible. But they are still there. They exist just outside your conscious awareness, influencing your reactions in subtle ways. They shape your decisions, your emotional responses, and even how you interpret situations. And because you don't see them directly, you assume they are not there. This creates a false sense of control. You believe you understand your mind completely, but in reality, you are only aware of a portion of it. The rest operates quietly, affecting you without drawing attention to itself. This is why certain reactions feel confusing. You may feel anger that seems disproportionate. You may experience fear without a clear reason. You may find yourself repeating patterns that don't make sense to you. These are not random. They are expressions of something you have not fully acknowledged. And the more you avoid looking at it, the harder it becomes to recognize how it controls you. The most unsettling part about this hidden side of your mind is not just that it exists, but how much influence it has over you without your awareness. It does not ask for permission. It does not explain itself. It simply acts through you. From my perspective, this becomes most visible in your reactions. There are moments when you respond more intensely than the situation seems to require. A small comment triggers a strong emotional response. A minor setback feels overwhelming. Or you find yourself repeating the same patterns, even when you know they don't benefit you. These moments are not random. They are expressions of something operating beneath the surface. When you ignore parts of yourself, they don't disappear. They remain active, shaping your behavior from the background. And because you are not consciously aware of them, you interpret their influence as your own intention. This creates confusion. You may think you are making rational decisions, but something else is guiding those choices. You may believe your reactions are justified, but they are often amplified by something unresolved within you. One of the ways this hidden part expresses itself is through projection. You may notice traits in others that strongly bother you. You judge, criticize, or react emotionally to behaviors that seem external. But often, these reactions are connected to something internal. It is easier to see flaws in others than to recognize them within yourself. This is not a weakness, it is a mechanism. Your mind redirects attention outward to avoid confronting what is uncomfortable internally, but projection is only one aspect. This hidden part also shows up in hesitation, self-doubt, and self-sabotage. You may avoid opportunities, delay important actions, or unconsciously limit yourself, not because you lack ability, but because something within you resists change. Why you avoid it? If this hidden part of your mind influences you so deeply, the natural question is why you continue to avoid it, why something so important remains outside your awareness for so long. From my perspective, the answer is simple, but not easy to accept. It is uncomfortable. Facing this part of yourself means questioning the identity you have built. It means acknowledging that you are not as consistent or as in control as you would like to believe. And for most people, that creates resistance. You have spent years shaping a version of yourself that feels stable. You know how you see yourself. You have defined your values, your behavior, and your personality. This creates a sense of certainty. It allows you to move through the world with a clear understanding of who you are. But this hidden part introduces something different. It reveals contradictions. It shows that there are aspects of you that don't align with that identity. Thoughts that don't fit. Emotions that feel out of place, reactions that challenge your self-image. And instead of exploring those contradictions, the natural response is to avoid them, to rationalize them, to dismiss them, or to shift attention elsewhere. Because acknowledging them feels threatening, it forces you to accept that your mind is more complex than you assumed, that there are parts of you you don't fully understand. And that uncertainty can feel uncomfortable, but avoiding it does not remove it. It strengthens it. The less aware you are of something, the more influence it has. Because what operates outside your awareness is not something you can control. It simply acts. And the longer you avoid it, the more it shapes your behavior without your permission. The consequences. Ignoring this hidden part of your mind does not make it disappear. It allows it to grow stronger and more influential over time. And this is where the consequences begin to become more visible. From my perspective, one of the most noticeable effects is repetition. You may find yourself going through similar situations again and again. The same types of problems, the same emotional patterns, the same outcomes. It can feel like you are moving forward, but somehow ending up in familiar places. This is not coincidence, it is pattern. When something within you remains unrecognized, it continues to express itself through your behavior. It influences your decisions, your relationships, and how you respond to challenges. And because you are not fully aware of it, you interpret these patterns as external. You assume the situation is the problem. You believe other people are responsible. You try to fix things around you, hoping the outcome will change. But the source is internal. Another consequence is distortion. When you ignore parts of yourself, your perception becomes less accurate. You may misinterpret intentions, react more strongly than necessary, or create meaning where there is none. This creates distance, not just from others, but from reality. Because you are no longer responding to what is happening. You are responding to something filtered through what you have not acknowledged within yourself. Over time, this can lead to confusion. You may feel like something is off, but you can't clearly explain why. You may try different solutions, but nothing seems to fully resolve the issue, and that is because you are addressing the surface, not the source. Seeing it changes everything. At some point, if you are willing to observe yourself more closely, you begin to notice patterns. You start to recognize that your reactions are not random, that your thoughts follow certain paths, that your behavior is more consistent than you assumed. This is where awareness begins. From my perspective, this is not a sudden realization, but a gradual shift. You start asking different questions. Instead of focusing only on what is happening around you, you begin to look at what is happening within you. You notice your reactions without immediately justifying them. You observe your thoughts without assuming they are completely accurate. and slowly, the hidden part of your mind becomes more visible. This idea was explored deeply by Carl Jung, who described it as the shadow, not as something separate from you, but as something that is part of you, even if you have not fully acknowledged it. And understanding this changes your perspective. Instead of rejecting certain aspects of yourself, you begin to recognize them. Not to act on them, but to understand them, to see how they influence your behavior and your decisions. This creates space, a moment between reaction and action. And in that space, you gain something important. Choice. You are no longer acting purely on what you are unaware of. You begin to respond with more clarity, with more intention. But this does not mean the hidden part disappears. It remains. The difference is that it is no longer completely hidden, and that changes how much control it has. Because what you can see, you can understand, and what you understand, you are less likely to be controlled by.